mit der lieben Verena von München muss handeln anfangen. Möchtest du vielleicht kurz
Ja,
Hallo?
wir testen mal. Hallo, hört ihr mich denn?
Ja, sehr cool. Ach,
Super.
übrigens, nochmal, tut uns leid, wenn die Verbindung nicht so gut ist. Ist ein bisschen schwierig. Dann würde ich jetzt vielleicht kurz ein bisschen interviewmäßig dich ein paar Sachen fragen, damit die Leute einfach so was über München muss handeln
Gern.
erfahren. Okay.
Mhm.
Möchtest du vielleicht erstmal erklären, was München muss handeln überhaupt ist?
Gern. Also München muss handeln ist ein ziemlich großes Münchner Bündnis. Besteht aktuell tatsächlich aus ja bereits 500 Bündnispartnern. Also es ist schon wirklich enorm und genau, das ist ganz breit aufgestellt. Also von Unternehmen, Organisationen, Handwerksbetrieben. Also die Bündnispartner sind sehr bunt gemischt und das freut uns auch, weil wir natürlich auch wollten, dass man einfach sieht, dass das Bündnis auch auf einem zivilgesellschaftlichen Rücken baut. Und genau, also das Bündnis hat sich eben mit Fridays for Future solidarisiert, beziehungsweise sich eben auch hinter die 32 Forderungen der Fridays for Future gestellt. Und genau, Ziel war als eigentlich, also die Wahl, also die Kommunalwahl am 15. März zur Klimawahl zu machen. Hintergrund ist dabei, dass eben die Kommunalpolitik sehr viel entscheidet und dass wir natürlich auch einen starken Münchner Stadtrat eben benötigen, der eben in den kommenden 6 Jahren also alle möglichen Klimaschutzmaßnahmen hier in München umsetzt, damit wir die Pariser Klimaschutzziele noch erreichen. Genau.
Okay. Möchtest du dann vielleicht kurz so die Geschichte von München muss handeln erzählen? Also wann und wie ihr euch gegründet habt?
Mhm. Also gegründet, das war eigentlich eher so, ja, schleichend ist das Ganze entstanden. Also es ging los im Juli vergangenen Jahres. Ja, eigentlich ganz inoffiziell ist es so ein bisschen entstanden, dass eben die Fridays hatten ja damals, es war Ende Juni, den Forderungskatalog publiziert. Der ist ja entstanden gemeinsam mit den Scientists for Future. Können Sie ja vielleicht dann auch nochmal was dazu sagen. Und genau, dann war eben so die Idee, dass man sich da ja irgendwie als Unternehmen oder Organisation irgendwie auch dahinter stellen muss. Und genau, dann ist es eigentlich so entstanden, dass man erstmal entschieden hat, wir machen erstmal ganz große Zeitungsanzeige. Da war eben so die Überschrift, München muss handeln, wir stehen hinter den Fridays for Future. Und da haben sich dann tatsächlich auch innerhalb von ein paar Tagen bereits 125 Münchner Unternehmen und Organisationen gefunden, die eben da mit Logo abgedruckt waren. Und genau, das war eigentlich so die erste große München muss handeln Aktion. So ging es dann noch weiter. Und im Herbst, beziehungsweise kurz vor Weihnachten, waren wir dann eben am Tollwood mit unserem Klimakrisenstab zu Gast und haben eben da schon mit ganz vielen Münchner Bürgerinnen und Bürgern über die Kommunalwahl gesprochen. Und im Januar diesen Jahres ging dann eben der Klimawahlhelfer online auf www.klimawahl2020.de. Und da wurden eben die ganzen Parteiprogramme mit den Forderungen der Münchner Fridays for Future verglichen. Genau, das sind so die größeren Eckpunkte.
Danke. Genau. Du hast jetzt auch mehrmals unsere Forderungen erwähnt. Die könnt ihr euch alle unter unserer Website durchlesen. Genau. Und genau, es gibt ja jetzt auch schon in anderen Städten muss handeln Unternehmen. Und möchtest du vielleicht einfach kurz sagen, wo es überhaupt noch welche gibt? Und
Mhm. Genau, also es war eigentlich so, dass relativ zeitnah zu unserem ersten Zeitungsbeitrag, also auch der Startartikel oder das Münchner muss handeln Startzeitpunkt, dass sich da andere Organisationen eben auch angeschlossen haben, beziehungsweise andere Städte angeschlossen haben. Also inzwischen sind es, muss ich auch kurz spicken, Hamburg, Landshut, Kempten, Nürnberg und Augsburg, also ebenfalls mit diesem jeweilige Stadt eben muss handeln und genau, wir sind da auch in sehr engem Austausch und haben zum Beispiel auch das gleiche Design für die Homepage verwendet und genau, haben eben auch den Klimawahlhelfer zur Verfügung gestellt, sodass die ganzen anderen Städte ebenfalls unsere Strukturen nutzen können. Und genau, so tauschen wir uns da eben aus.
Okay, du hattest ja auch gerade schon den Klimawahlhelfer erwähnt.
Mhm.
Möchtest du einfach kurz erklären, wie genau der aufgebaut ist? Und kann man den immer noch finden? Und habt ihr da irgendwelche Resonanz drauf bekommen? Und wenn ja, was eher negativ oder positiv?
Genau, also den Klimawahlhelfer gibt es natürlich immer noch auf www.klimawahl2020.de. Also man kommt dann eigentlich direkt auf unsere Homepage. Und genau, ich habe es vorhin schon mal kurz erwähnt. Also das Ziel war eigentlich, dass man eben die ganzen Parteiprogramme mit den Forderungen der Fridays for Future in München eben abgleicht. Also dass man einfach mal wirklich auf einen Blick sieht, welche Partei stellt sich hinter die Forderungen und ist es auch wirklich ernst gemeint. Und genau, also wir hatten da Punktevergabesystem, das kann ich ganz kurz erklären. Und zwar war das so, also 0 Punkte gab es für den Absatz oder den Teil im Parteiprogramm, wenn der in gar keiner Weise den Forderungen entsprochen hat. 1 Punkt gab es, wenn er den Forderungen entsprochen hat. Und genau, dann hatten wir so 0,5 Punkte System, hauptsächlich für Dinge, die zum Beispiel irgendwie zu unspezifisch im Parteiprogramm hinterlegt waren. Also jetzt zum Beispiel, wenn wenn kein Zeitpunkt oder kein Zeitrahmen genannt wurde, weil es ist natürlich auch irgendwie wichtig, dass wir jetzt auch auf kommunalpolitischer Ebene schnell voranschreiten. Und genau deswegen gab es dann quasi für die Parteien, wenn das zu unpräzise war oder genau, wenn der Zeitpunkt eben gar nicht genannt wurde, gab es dann eben nur 0,5 Punkte. Und genau, also das Ranking kann man sich auch noch anschauen. Also es ist ähnlich wie die Energieeffizienzklassen, also von grün oder A++ bis hin zu rot. Das heißt, die Parteien, die sich eben also nicht klimaschutzkonform da äußern in ihrem Parteiprogramm oder halt einfach keinen Klimaschutz auch machen, sind dann natürlich entsprechend negativ bewertet. Und genau, eigentlich gab es nur 2 Parteien, die AfD und die BIA. Die sind bei uns nicht bewertet, liegt aber daran, dass beide Parteien mit uns nicht kommuniziert hatten. Genau. Aber alle anderen Münchner Parteien sind drin und genau, wir haben auch den ganzen Kandidierenden die Chance gegeben, sich in einem persönlichen Statement nochmal zu äußern, weil ja die Kommunalwahl auch einfach eine Personenwahl natürlich ist. Also sehr auf kommunalpolitischer Ebene auch sehr wichtig, dass das Gesicht dahinter zugutekommt, sagen wir mal so, beziehungsweise dadurch, dass man ja die Personen auch einzeln wählen kann oder zwischen Listen auch wählen kann, genau, dass man dann quasi die Person nochmal zu Wort kommen lässt. Genau.
Und haben die Parteien dann irgendwie auf diesen Wahlhelfer reagiert oder haben die sich da gar nicht irgendwie daran orientiert?
Also ich würde es mal ganz allgemein sagen, dass die Parteien, die sich klimapolitisch natürlich engagieren oder die sich einfach generell für den Klimaschutz engagieren, dass wir mit denen in sehr gutem Austausch waren und dass die dann natürlich auch mitgeholfen hatten, das vor allem in den sozialen Kanälen, auf den Social-Media-Kanälen zu verbreiten, sodass das für uns natürlich dann auch hilfreich war. Also es war so, Geben und Nehmen. Also ich glaube, wir sind da eigentlich ganz gut ausgekommen so miteinander.
Und jetzt sind ja die Wahlen vorbei. Habt ihr das Gefühl, dass ihr die Wahlen zur Klimawahl gemacht habt? Oder was denkt ihr von dem Ergebnis der Wahlen?
Also wir sind auf jeden Fall, also schon positiv auf jeden Fall Wahlausgang. Und es ist ja auch so, dass der Münchner Stadtrat inzwischen, beziehungsweise jetzt demnächst sehr durchgemischt sein wird. Also es gibt ganz viele neue Stadträtinnen und Stadträte, die neu sind, also die auch so ein bisschen frischen Wind mit reinbringen. Das freut uns natürlich. Und genau, auch wenn es für die Grünen jetzt in der Stichwahl nicht geklappt hat. Es ist auf jeden Fall gut, dass einfach viele Parteien beziehungsweise viele Persönlichkeiten mit drin sind, die auf jeden Fall das Klimathema gut vertreten werden. Wir haben ja bei unserer Podiumsdiskussion auch schon unser Vertrauen übergeben. Das war so ein bisschen ein größerer Stein, da war Vertrauen drauf graviert. Und genau, also wir werden das auf jeden Fall kritisch beobachten in Zukunft. Und wir sind ja ein starkes Bündnis, also wir können auch nochmal einschreiten, sollte da irgendwas nicht laufen, wie wir uns das erhoffen. Aber ja, wir sind da schon zuversichtlich, dass da viel frischer Wind jetzt auf jeden Fall in den nächsten Münchner Stadtrat kommt.
Okay, du hast ja gerade schon die Stichwahl erwähnt. Möchtest du da kurz noch was dazu sagen?
Gern. Also wie in vielen anderen bayerischen Städten und Gemeinden gibt es ja auch in München die Stichwahl. Es war eigentlich abzusehen. Und genau, also die Stadt München macht auf jeden Fall sehr viel, dass dass die Wahl am Sonntag stattfinden kann. Also es ist ja eine reine Briefwahl tatsächlich, ist natürlich auch für die Stadt mit erheblichem Verwaltungsaufwand jetzt verbunden. Zudem werden die Briefkästen später geleert als sonst. Also man kann tatsächlich noch bis morgen Abend um 18 Uhr seine Briefwahlunterlagen einwerfen. Wer es heute schon schafft, ist natürlich heute, ja, je früher, umso besser natürlich. Aber genau, also die Stadt München nimmt auf jeden Fall genau da auch jetzt nochmal Verwaltungsaufwand in Kauf. Und ja, wir rufen natürlich jeden auf, die Stimme auch zu nutzen und zur Wahl zu gehen. Ja, sehr wichtig auf jeden Fall, dass man sich da beteiligt.
Okay, vielen Dank, Verena. Nicht vergessen, bis morgen Abend könnt ihr noch eure Wahlunterlagen abgeben. Genau, das wäre es dann fürs Erste mit München muss handeln.
Super, danke euch.
Genau. Bei unserem nächsten Gast bin ich mir etwas unsicher. Da hatten wir gerade ein paar technische Probleme. Ich frage uns nach, Elena, bist du da? Okay, dann würde ich vielleicht einfach kurz an David übergeben. Dann machen wir erstmal die anderen Gäste und dann schauen wir, ob später technisch mäßig klappt mit Elena. Genau.
Ja, hallo. Sieht man mich, hört man mich? Ich hoffe es sehr. Also, hallo, ich bin der David. Alles super, wunderbar. Ich bin der David, ich co-moderiere mit der Hanna. Die hat sich ja gerade schon vorgestellt. Und eigentlich ist es schade, dass wir jetzt die Elena nicht jetzt reinkriegen, sondern wahrscheinlich erst ein bisschen später, weil die Elena ist ein Mitglied unseres Münchner Orga-Teams, das bei der COP25 dabei war, also bei der internationalen Klimakonferenz in Madrid vor kurzem. Und es wäre eine grandiose Überleitung gewesen zu unseren nächsten Gästinnen. Das holen wir dann einfach ein bisschen später nach. Unsere nächsten Gästinnen sind nämlich allesamt international. Also wir hatten die Idee, so eine Mischung zu machen aus Münchner Akteurinnen und Akteuren und internationalen Akteurinnen und Akteuren. Das werden wir auch in Zukunft so weitermachen. Da gibt es ja nämlich noch viel Interessantes. Ich freue mich zum Beispiel auf die Scientists for Future. Und da haben wir jetzt plötzlich dieses Mal ein bisschen einen Überhang an internationalen bekommen, weil die alle zugesagt haben und die Münchner haben nicht alle zugesagt. Aber das freut mich natürlich sehr. Man könnte ja auch sagen, es ist der eine kleine Vorteil, den wir davon haben, dass wir nur online streiken können, dass wir jetzt Reden aus aller Welt sozusagen bei unseren Streiks haben. Und deswegen fange ich jetzt mal an. Das wird jetzt auf Englisch sein. Ich weiß nicht, ob wir das hinkriegen mit einem deutschen Untertitel. Da gab es mal die Idee. Wenn nicht, vergesst, was ich gerade gesagt habe. Okay. So, our next guest is Xanthi. Do I pronounce it right? Xanthi, are you there?
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
I am here. Oh, wait, am I here? Am I here? Yeah, I'm here.
Hello. I can't see you, Summer, but I can hear you. That's better than nothing, I guess.
How do I?
You need to turn on your webcam if that's.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll give you some time. Don't worry.
I have no idea. Oh. I don't know how to do it. I mean, there's.
Well, anyways.
Yeah, sorry.
Xanthi is from the UK, as some of you might hear from her accent. Xanthi, you're from Oxford, right?
Yeah.
Great. So I think most people, when they hear Oxford, they just think of the universities there.
Yeah.
But now they know an actual person from Oxford. Yeah, I think we still can't see you, can we? Wait, I will look in the YouTube comments. Maybe some people know there.
Participant has stopped the camera. Oh, how do I not stop the camera?
Well, don't worry. Otherwise, we can just talk, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know how many people are actually watching and not just listening anyways. So don't worry about that. So Xanthi, just tell us a little bit about you. Like, how old are you? And how did you get into striking for climate or that kind of stuff?
So I'm 15. I started in January 2019. No, sorry, February 2019. And I think my brother went into, so we strike in Bond Square in Oxford, which is about 15 minutes from my school and also where I live. And yeah, he went there with some of his friends when we weren't like an established movement group. And then I went, and then there was the first main one, big strike in February. And yeah, and then I didn't go for quite a long time because I didn't really know what they were about. And then I think in about maybe a little bit before October or August, I think that was about when I joined the planning team and started to help plan them. So our strikes are usually in Bond Square, and then we have a march, and then we do some chants and all of the usual strike stuff, and then we ask everyone to hold up their signs and read out some signs, and then we usually have some climate scientists, which people who like ask questions to. And then, but sometimes when we can't, when we don't like have time maybe to organize, to like coordinate a strike, we go to our county council where they make local decisions, and we sit outside there, and we don't march, but we sometimes have a picnic and we sing songs and things like that. Yeah.
Great. Well, I think that's very interesting to hear. That's one thing I really love about about the climate movement, is how very international it is. It's happening in almost every country in the world now, especially with the global strikes. That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. So you probably, I mean, it's the same in England, right? There's a very special situation going on right now with the entire Corona crisis. Are you how are your strikes affected by that? Do you do more online stuff, or do you just pause, or do you still strike, or how are you coping with the situation?
Okay, before I'm just downloading the app on my phone, so I might be able to show my face in a minute.
Okay.
But yeah, so right now, I mean, this morning we decided to, like, last week we had our first digital strike. Because we only went on lockdown on Monday, I think, which was quite late, but so we striked 2 weeks ago. So we started the digital strike a week late. So have you guys been doing digital striking? We're doing that.
Yeah, we did something like that. We did climate strike online, which Greta Thunberg did, right? Like with the holding signs in the camera, posting pictures of it. We did that the last 2 weeks, but now we've moved more to this streaming stuff. We want to do that more often and try this.
I think we're basically doing the same. And we've set up Zoom calls every week. Well, starting last week, and we had one again this morning with anybody from Oxford Youth Strike who wants to join, and then we talk, and then we take a photo with our signs, which is really nice to just hear from them. And we've also decided to start having themes for our strikes. So, am I here on the?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've started doing. So one of our themes was, so there's some for recognizing people who maybe aren't who are from indigenous communities, and then also some other things just about like what we can do locally. And then so there's quite a wide range of topics which we can choose from, and then we'll try and focus on them. And maybe if there's particular movements started up around Oxford, we might talk about them. But it's quite a new concept.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're quite new to it. We might try and speak. Oh, okay. Have I joined?
Ah, yeah. I can see you now.
Hey, awesome. Okay,
Amazing.
Hey, okay, sorry. This is on my phone, so I've just turned off my computer. How does this? Oh, this is really confusing. Okay, am I here?
Yeah, we can see you. Don't worry, we can see you.
Oh, hello. Sorry about. Okay. Amazing. Hello.
Hi. Okay, nice to see you.
Okay.
Finally,
Lovely
for the
to
first time.
see you. I'm gonna try and stand up my phone. This might not work. Can you see me?
Yeah, great.
Awesome. I've got my sign as well, just because I had them earlier, so I'm just holding it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, then you already said that your government was quite late with the shutdown for the corona crisis, right? That made the news even here in Germany. Like, how is that with climate change? Would you say they are more? I mean, your government is rather new in office, right? But would you say they do more there, or are they not paying attention at all, like most governments
I mean,
are?
they're not really sticking to the Paris Agreement, and I think they've said that we'll be carbon neutral by 2050, but we're not really sure how believable that is.
Yeah, that's the same in Germany. We have that, but every scientist says that we're not going to make it, so it's kind of senseless to have this kind of goal if it's not sticking to it, right?
Yeah, it's probably pretty similar, where to Germany, to be honest.
Yeah, I can assume. But then again, the UK is islands, right? Like 2 big islands mainly. So one would think that you are very affected by the consequences of the climate crisis, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you know any predictions about that or something like this? Are you endangered in a sense?
We have like lots of floods, like a lot. And that will probably increase. Also the air pollution will get worse. So like, for example, I have asthma, so I probably will struggle a bit with that. So which means that the National Health Service might get a bit more overwhelmed. But yeah, floodings and like the destruction of nature is probably the biggest thing that will happen. But currently, well, there's this thing called being built quite near me called HS2, which is a high-speed rail. And yeah, at first you think it might be good because it's a train, but then it's basically taking out 10 times more land of what it could take out. So, and also the land that it's basically destroying is miles and miles of ancient woodland, which is quite sad. But the strange thing is that the government is saying that it's essential work. It's still carrying on during the coronavirus, which is quite unsafe for the workers as well. So it's a bad project within itself, but it's also like not very safe for the workers because they should be at home and self-isolating.
Oh, yeah.
That's very
I think workers are still working in Germany, like at least in some places. It is weird, indeed. Well, one more question I have for you, because you already said that the government in England or in the UK isn't really acting on the climate crisis, right? But would you say it's similar with the society as a whole? Like, is the society of the UK, do they care about the climate crisis? Are they aware of the catastrophes upon them, or are they not really giving a either?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
well, recently, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of Extinction Rebellion, the movement, and they've had quite a lot of protests. Like,
Oh yeah, I was just seeing your laptop. I think you have to turn your camera.
oh, whoops! How do I? I'm so sorry.
I don't
Is
know.
that better?
Yeah, now you see it. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I can't. Oh, I see myself. Yes, so, I mean, have you heard of Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah, sure. We have that as well, but it's bigger in England, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've had like two big what they call rebellions, which is basically trying to take over the streets or corporations in London for 1 or 2 weeks. And the first one was in April. And then at the end of that, the government declared a climate and ecological emergency, which was actually really good because it meant they were listening to the protests instead of ignoring them. So that got a lot of public view, like everybody, obviously because we were blocking roads, that got a massive notice. A lot of people have become on board. And also within like Fridays for Future, a lot of people come up and talk to us when we were in Oxford. So, and people are like, oh, I've never heard of this, even though like it's been a year. I mean, obviously there are some people who, oh, you know, climate change isn't real, and there are always going to be those people, but I think it has gained a lot of like, public support.
But you're right, I forgot about Extinction Rebellion in England. That's quite big, isn't it? Does that make the news in Germany as well when they blocked Heathrow as well, right? The airport.
Yeah, they did.
And in London, and I think they blocked the entire inner city of London, right? Like all the roads.
Yeah, it was because
cool.
I'm also part of XR, so I know quite a bit about that, and I know that's also a massive. And also the climate strikes in London, massive all of the time.
Okay. Do you know? I mean, like, do they have a record of like how many people? Like, what was the biggest turnout that they had?
In London or Oxford?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Both.
I'm not sure about London. It's so many people, but I think in Oxford our biggest amount has been about 6,000, which is actually quite a lot for us, seeing as at that time it was only about one person doing a lot of, or like a couple of people doing a lot of the work. So I think 6,000 is our biggest number in Oxford, which is quite big for us.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's great.
Yeah, in London, I mean, so we have in Oxford we do monthly strikes, and then some of us, like me and a couple of other people, go weekly. And on the monthly strikes, we always get at least like a solid 100 or so, like normally more. But I guess if it's raining, then we get a bit less. But with London, they have strikes every couple of months, which means they're always big because they always just do a massive strike and then wait a couple of months and do another massive strike.
Yeah, we have these massive global strikes as well, but then at least in Munich we try to do weekly ones, but the ones who get the most media attention and most people turn out are the global ones as well. That's always a great feeling, isn't it, when like millions are in the streets all over the world. Well,
yeah, exactly.
Santi, thank you so much. I would love to talk to you for a bit longer, but we still have a few other guests waiting. And maybe you want to come back in one of the next weeks. I mean, we're going to do this for the rest of the Corona crisis, I guess, every Friday. So maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, you'd like to join us again. We'll see then.
Yeah. I'll try and prepare them. Sorry, I'm not very good at speaking sometimes.
Thank
and then this absolutely yeah, thank you very much.
Very interesting to hear.
It was lovely to meet you as well. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, then to our international guests waiting, we now have another German guest, and then we return to international again. So please excuse the language switching all the time. Okay, Hannah.
Okay, genau. Die technischen Schwierigkeiten sind jetzt nicht mehr da. Genau, deswegen haben wir jetzt Elena zugeschaltet. Elena ist auch aus der Ortsgruppe von Fridays for Future München und hilft mit beim Organisieren. Und genau, sie war auch auf der COP25 in Madrid Ende des Jahres, also Ende 2019. Möchtest du vielleicht kurz erstmal erklären, was die COP25 ist?
Ja, gerne. Also die COP25 ist einfach die 25. Klimakonferenz. Die erste war 1995 in Berlin und das war jetzt die letzte eben in Madrid. Und das ist ein Treffen von politischen Entscheidungskräften, die zusammenkommen, um internationale Vereinbarungen zu finden, um die Klimakrise effektiv zu bekämpfen.
Okay, wer ist da alles so? Also wer trifft sich dort? Über was wird da beraten?
Neben den Vertretern von den verschiedenen Staaten ist dort Presse, also ich war als Presse dort, und die Observer sind die BeobachterInnen, das heißt, es sind NGOs, viele WissenschaftlerInnen sind dort, und dort gibt es diese Verhandlungen, die jedes Jahr weitergehen. Es wird momentan immer noch über Unterpunkte vom Pariser Klimaabkommen von 2015 in Paris gehandelt, und daneben aber auch über andere internationale Vereinbarungen. Aber dazu gibt es noch total viele andere Nebenveranstaltungen. Das heißt, Vorträge und Podiumsdiskussionen, wissenschaftliche Sachen von NGOs organisierte, und natürlich gab es von Fridays for Future ziemlich viele Proteste und Aktionen.
Du hast ja gerade schon gesagt, es gab viele Aktionen von Fridays for Future. Wie war es denn da, so Aktivisten von der Klimabewegung generell und von Fridays for Future dort auf der COP25 zu treffen, und was genau habt ihr dann dort gemacht?
Also erstmal vielleicht, das war insgesamt so mein Eindruck davon, war so auf der einen Seite komplett frustrierend, weil in diesen Verhandlungen und so weiter nichts vorangeht und diese ganze Veranstaltung ein bisschen wie eine Farce ist, wo sich die Länder selbst für ihre absolut unambitionierten Klimapläne feiern. Auf der anderen Seite war es wahnsinnig toll, Aktivisten aus der ganzen Welt zu treffen. Wirklich, wir waren aus fast allen Kontinenten vertreten und sind zusammengekommen, und es war ein unglaublich starkes Gefühl, so für das Gleiche zu kämpfen und auch für die gleiche Sache da zu sein. Und da haben wir dann verschiedene Aktionen auch zusammen geplant und hatten verschiedene Pläne, internationale, europäische, nationale, und haben geschaut, wie wir zusammenarbeiten können. Und im Gegensatz zu den politischen Verhandlungen, sage ich mal, haben wir als Fridays for Future sehr versucht, darauf zu achten, dass die globale Gleichheit da ist. Das heißt, dass der globale Süden nicht unterrepräsentiert ist, wie es auf der COP jedes Jahr so ist. Und haben versucht klarzumachen, dass wir nicht einverstanden sind damit, wie diese Klimakonferenzen momentan ablaufen.
Hast du das Gefühl gehabt, dass die PolitikerInnen positiv auf euch reagieren, oder waren die eher genervt davon, dass da jetzt überall irgendwelche KlimaaktivistInnen rumlaufen? Oder haben die vielleicht sogar auch mit euch geredet und Kompromisse geschlossen?
Es ist ja jedes Jahr so, dass dort AktivistInnen sind. Es war nur das erste Mal, dass von Fridays for Future so viele da waren. Manche von uns haben sich mit verschiedenen PolitikerInnen getroffen und auch mit denen gesprochen. Aber insgesamt sind es ja extrem viele, die zu riesigen Verhandlungen kommen. Die verschiedenen Länder beraten sich in verschiedenen Zimmern, wie sie dann in den großen Verhandlungen auftreten werden. Und wir haben verschieden mit denen gesprochen, aber so wir in Deutschland sind so ein bisschen privilegierter, wie es ist, mit PolitikerInnen zu sprechen, obwohl die uns wirklich nicht entgegenkommen, würde ich jetzt mal sagen. Aber zumindest sprechen sie mit uns. In anderen Ländern, andere Aktivisten aus anderen Ländern, die ich gesprochen habe, die zum Beispiel versucht haben, mit der brasilianischen Regierung zu sprechen, das funktioniert einfach überhaupt nicht. Mit unseren Aktionen, dafür war dann sozusagen die UN verantwortlich, das bisschen kontrollieren, und das hat am Anfang ganz gut geklappt. Aber dann gab es zum Beispiel einen Protest, wo sehr viele NGOs und indigene AktivistInnen und Fridays for Future AktivistInnen vor der großen Halle unangemeldet protestiert haben. Da sind die Anmeldungen noch strenger, wie wenn man normale Proteste organisiert, und dann alle rausgeschmissen wurden. Und an dem Tag durfte niemand, kein Observer, also kein mit einem Observer-Abzeichen mehr überhaupt die COP betreten, was es vorher noch nie gab. Und seitdem hatten wir dann ziemlich Probleme mit der UN, unsere Aktionen anzumelden. Weil die Gefahr besteht immer, dass du dein Badge, also dein Abzeichen, mit dem du rein kannst in die COP, verlierst und dann darfst du nicht mehr reinkommen. Und wenn es ganz schlecht läuft, kann es passieren, dass du nie wieder eine COP betreten darfst. Und das wollten wir natürlich vermeiden.
Du hast ja vorhin schon gesagt, dass es manchmal echt frustrierend war, zu sehen, wie sich die eigenen Länder für ihre sehr unambitionierten Klimaziele feiern und Klimapläne feiern. Aber du hast ja auch gesagt, dass es andererseits auch sehr cool war, die anderen Aktivisten zu treffen und sich mit denen zu vernetzen, zu sehen, dass es das überall auf der Welt gibt. Wie war dein Gefühl nach der COP25? Also warst du eher zuversichtlich oder hattest du das Gefühl, es war alles umsonst, was sie gemacht haben?
Es ist irgendwie gemischt und immer noch gemischt, weil auf der einen Seite es toll ist zu wissen, dass überall auf der Welt wahnsinnig inspirierende Menschen für die gleiche Sache kämpfen und wir wirklich nicht alleine damit sind und diese Bewegung unglaublich groß und stark ist. Auf der anderen Seite wurde mir klar, wie sowas abläuft und wie träge das ist. Und obwohl ich schon vorher nicht erwartet habe, dass da wirklich was in Sachen Klimagerechtigkeit und so weiter vorangeht, war das wirklich nochmal enttäuschend. Und mir ist nochmal klar geworden, dass wir nicht drauf zählen, noch wirklich, wirklich nicht drauf zählen können, dass verschiedene EntscheidungsträgerInnen hier Klimaziele verschärfen und wirklich handeln werden, sondern dass wir das irgendwie in die Hand nehmen müssen und dass wir wirklich noch viel zu tun haben, bis da irgendwas vorangeht.
Okay. Ja, also das waren jetzt eigentlich schon alle meine Fragen. Falls ihr noch welche habt, könnt ihr die auch noch alle auf YouTube stellen. Wir beantworten die dann alle am Schluss. Genau. Möchtest du noch irgendwas zur COP25 sagen, was dir im Herzen liegt? Oder?
Ja, ich würde vielleicht eine Sache noch loswerden. Also ich fand es ziemlich krass zu sehen, dass von den Ländern, vor allem eben aus Europa und aus den nördlichen Ländern, sehr, sehr viele VertreterInnen da waren und aus den südlichen Ländern, die waren einfach extrem unterrepräsentiert. Und es war ein bisschen erschreckend zu sehen, dass das in unserer Bewegung auch so passiert. Und nicht, weil wir das absichtlich wollen, sondern weil es einfach für uns sehr, sehr viel leichter ist, dorthin zu kommen. Das heißt, es waren sehr viele Aktivistinnen aus Deutschland da und auch aus Dänemark waren viele da und der Schweiz und Österreich und so weiter und nördlicheren Ländern. Und es gab viel weniger aus südlicheren Ländern, weil die Klimakonferenzen Jahr für Jahr immer wieder in Europa stattfinden. Und daran müssen wir in unserer Bewegung arbeiten, dass wir versuchen, da die Gleichheit herzustellen und eben auch auf Klimagerechtigkeit zu achten, weil das ja auch bedeutet, dass der globale Süden so repräsentiert wird, wie er es kann, also wie es ihm berechtigt ist. Und dass wir wirklich merken müssen, wie privilegiert wir sind und dass wir da einen ganz starken Zusammenhalt sein müssen, weil es den auf politischer Ebene noch sehr, sehr, sehr viel weniger gibt. Und wir haben es zumindest probiert, aber dass da auch noch zu arbeiten ist.
Okay, dann war es das jetzt fürs Erste von Elena und mir und ich würde dann wieder an David übergeben.
So, erstmal unmuten, das hätte ich jetzt fast vergessen. Ja, also, danke Elena, sehr interessant. Dann switchen wir jetzt wieder zu Englisch. So our last guest was Elena from Munich, and she told us something about the COP25, the COP, in Madrid, and her last words were that it was very sad to see actually that also with the climate activists who were invited, most of them were from the global north, so that there's some kind of structural racism going on, which is of course not intended, at least on this level, but still happening, and that we as a community of climate activists have to work on that intensively, especially when you think about that while the biggest polluters are still in the global north, the ones who are most affected by the consequences of the climate crisis usually live in the global south. So that's why I'm very happy to say that today we also have guests from the global south, namely from India. We actually have, I don't know how many of you on the stream right now, feel free to unmute now. I was in India myself a few months ago, and I went to Climate Strike there, which was a very interesting experience, and I still had the number of a organizer there, and I texted her, and she sent me several numbers, and I texted them, and there were no replies for a while because, of course, you have a time shift, etc., etc. And so I got a bit in panic, and I texted even more people. And I think now we have 2 or 3 people from India here. So that should be Sanjana from Chennai and Bangalore, Eunice from Kolkata, and Disha from Bangalore. I don't know, guys, please feel free to introduce yourselves. I don't know how many of you made it here because there were some technical differences as well. So please unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'm Sanjana. I'm from Chennai and Bangalore. So I've been part of FFF here, and also I'm part of Polluters Out also, which is like a new youth coalition. Yeah, others can introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Disha. I'm from Bangalore. I'm a part of FF Bangalore and Polluters Out. Who else is there?
Is Eunice? Did Eunice make it? Hello, Eunice. Are you there? Well, I think if it's just the 2 of you, that's also very good. Well, thank you so much for joining our stream. You both just said that you're also part of a group called Polluters Out. Maybe, Disha, would you like to explain what that is?
Okay, so Polluters Out is basically a youth coalition of climate activists from around the world. The main aim of Polluters Out is to get the next COP and the UNFCCC to stop accepting fundings from fossil fuel corporations who are the major polluters. We have a petition for it, as well as we've been doing digital actions this entire week. And this week we actually aimed at Adani and Shell, and our aim was to basically get them out of just to ask them to stop funding the next COP, which is the COP26.
Great. As some of the German people watching may see, it's quite dark where you are because we have a time shift of, I think, like 4.5 hours, right? So also thank you very much for taking time at this late time in India. Well, Sanjana, I hope I pronounced your name right.
Yes, yeah. Yes.
Disha just told us about Adani. We had to protest ourselves here in Munich because actually Siemens is a German company, and they provided like rail signaling for the Adani coal mine. But Adani is an Indian company, right? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that? What happened there? Your protest, all this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one thing is the Adani, like it's not just they're the second largest sort of coal player in India as well. Like I think they and the National Thermal Pollution Control Board, they're like the biggest coal producers in India. And India is like powered 80% by coal. It's still very, very coal dependent. And they've sort of, I mean, apart from, they have their coal mines in this state called Chhattisgarh, which is dominated by populations that are indigenous. So their forests have been sort of cleared out, and like, I don't know, I think it's around 10,000, 40,000 hectares of land. So it's there, you know, this is not an issue that has gotten the kind of global attention that Australia has gotten. But they are, you know, they've been trying to, the local people in Chhattisgarh have been protesting this for a long time. It's actually like a reserve forest, but, you know, it's going to be like thousands and thousands of trees felled over there. Apart from that, like they've been like flouting regulations back home. Like according to certain emission standards, we're supposed to be reducing are like all the coal plants are supposed to reduce their emissions, and the deadline was 2017, but they sort of got pushed to 2020, and now they want it pushed to 2023. So they like to reduce their emissions. So they're so these are kind of issues that is happening here as well. But I am like the Stop Adani movement here in India, I wouldn't think it's strong. Disha, would you have anything to add about the Stop Adani? I think you've spoken to the Stop Adani people as well. So
Yeah, so the Stop Adani movement in India isn't very strong just because Adani has a very strong foothold in here, and a lot of indigenous activists have gone missing without any chase or without any. There's no way to tell where they went, so it's quite dangerous to protest Adani in India because Adani has a huge uh, influence in the country. So the Stop Adani movement has been kicked off that well, but that it is very much existing, and they are still fighting. And it's whatever they've done so far is very great. Like they've been constantly in touch with the indigenous movements in Bangalore, and they've been working on it, and they've done some amazing work.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. Actually, when I hadn't heard of Adani ever before the entire thing with the coal mine in Australia started, and with the bushfires at the same time. Yeah, it's crazy how you often don't know the names of these huge polluters, right? But I don't know if that makes you feel better. Probably it will make you feel worse. But in Germany, we have the biggest coal mines in all of Europe, and there is a movement against it. But it's not really big either. So I think we're still at a starting point, probably in most parts of the world. But I think it's so great that the two of you are putting so much energy into it. Well, let's talk a little bit about Indian society. Do you think that many Indians are aware of the climate crisis and how they will be affected by it, or do you think that's still like a B or C class topic? Like whoever of you wants to answer.
Sure. Can I go?
Yeah, please go.
Yeah. Okay. So I would think that it's not really on the political agenda at all. So it's not something that is seen as politically relevant. So it's also not seen amongst people. I mean, when I say amongst people, I think in general in the news it's not talked about. In general, it is not spoken about. There is like some growing awareness in urban areas where, I mean, you can see FFF and all of that, like FFF chapters popping up, and also there've been like local environmental movements as well. However, I think also there has been strong indigenous protests happening in India for like decades. But of course this has been very like not really spoken about that much, and things like that. But I would think in general, it's not seen as the most important priority because it's seen as we're still developing as a country, and we should be focusing priority on the economy and not really like the awareness of we're going to be one of the most, I think we're going to we stand to lose the most lives because of climate change, and we are also like seeing so many disasters. I think since the disasters have started, there is some sort of conversation, but it's still, I would not think that big. Yeah. What about you, Disha?
So actually, we had an experiment recently. The India's largest youth festival had actually invited us, and we had a stall there where we put up climate change isn't real, change our mind, just to see how people perceive climate change. It was supposed to use reverse psychology. And we found that a lot of people did come up to change our minds, unaware that we're climate activists. And the thing is, a lot of people are aware of climate change, but the issue is that they don't understand how serious of an issue it is, or how it's going to affect us in the short term instead of the long term. So while they're aware, they don't think it's an immediate threat or a concern that they should be worried about. They think it's a long-term activity, and they're more aware of the Australian bushfires and whatever the media is spewing up versus like Indian climate crisis. They're not really aware of what's happening in India, but they do know about like the Amazon and the Australian fires.
Okay, yeah, you just I think it was Sanjana who already said also something about the consequences of the climate crisis in India, and that's very interesting to hear because when I was there, people told me that there were huge droughts, many people actually died, that you have floods also in West Bengal, but I think the two of you are from Chennai and Bangalore, right? So you're more from the south, probably know more about the droughts and stuff like that. Like, do you know what has happened there in the recent past and what is going to happen in the future? Like, are there any projections on that?
Yeah, so currently,
okay, Disha can.
I can't hear you, Sanjana. Do you want to take this?
No, I was saying you can go ahead. No, I was saying you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, so in Bangalore, especially the Niti Aayog report, which was a report released by a research center, and they predicted that we will be out of underground water by the end of this year, actually. And we're already seeing a lot of struggles with our underground water levels. In my area personally, we don't have our water levels have been going down, and it's way harder to procure water for us, especially since we're so dependent on groundwater. So we've definitely been facing some droughts, but I think it's only going to get worse if the government does nothing about it. We haven't had any floods in Bangalore because it isn't anywhere close to the sea. Chennai, however, is right next to the sea, so I think Sanjana will be able to touch on that.
Yeah. So one second. So Chennai, it seems a thing of a pattern of like extreme flooding and extreme drought. So it's in the winter months, it sees like the rainfall that usually seen in 50 days now comes in a span of 4 days, and so it's extremely like every winter it's a flood, and like because of the flooding, I live in a campus that's heavily forested. And it has like a lot of trees, but every year of flooding there's been like a fall of like 500 to 1,000 trees in my campus itself, so it's extremely sad to see that. And and also last year we faced a severe water crisis. Actually, anyone who wanted to stay back in the campus during the summer were asked to forcibly leave because we did not have, like, the city did not have enough water, and like, I mean, we were relatively well off. We were living in a campus. They sort of like it's a campus of importance. So like we were being asked, like we were being getting water, but like especially for poor populations, it was really difficult to manage. They were sort of, and we were in a city, so water was being put in from like the rural sides towards the city. So it's a pretty bad situation. And even in like, I think a lot of districts in Karnataka and like Chennai as well, like both, I mean, the states that we're from have been like experienced droughts and experienced water scarcity. And 21 cities in India, according to that report, are going to run out of groundwater this year. So it's pretty extreme, the water crisis. But I don't think it was addressed. I don't think it's popular in people's mind that this is reality. I don't think people are able to wrap their heads around this. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I noticed when I was in Chennai, I went to a climate strike in Chennai actually in September, the global one. And what I noticed is that there was a big focus on air pollution there. So that's very interesting to see, because when I went to a climate strike in Thailand, for example, most had signs protesting plastic pollution. In Germany, it's mainly about energy, like coal, etc. And then in India, I had the feeling that there was a lot of that at this time, at least, air pollution was was a big topic. I mean, Delhi just had declared a health emergency. So is that still like this? And do you think that air pollution is a big threat in India?
Yeah, so in Chennai, I was working on an air pollution campaign, and I mean, even if you rely on our like official data, which is heavily tampered, like the machines are heavily tampered with, it doesn't really like the situation seems pretty bad. But I'm working with this organization that they sort of did an independent study and found that Chennai, which is considered to be a pretty it's not a city that's considered very polluted, but it itself is always in violation of the rule, like permissible limits. And our permissible limits are set way higher than like European permissible limits, but it's violative of that. Yeah, like and like if you go up north to like Delhi, and I think 7 or 6 of the 10 most polluted cities in the world are from India. So air pollution is, I mean, it's definitely a concern. But what I would think is right now, I mean, before the corona itself, India was pretty politically charged. So we were having a lot of communal conflicts. So I don't think there was any dialogue that could have been, there was no like public discourse about this. Yeah, that's what I could say.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with whatever Sanjana said, because the political situation in India hasn't addressed the climate crisis at all. And I think air pollution was the topic because it's the most tangible of all the problems that we have, because not everyone can see the water crisis because it's hard to notice. And even not everyone can even see the energy crisis, like the coal mining, because it isn't in like popular areas. It's in forests, so not majority of the country cannot relate. So I think once the air pollution was so bad, everyone could, like, you're breathing it every day, and in most parts of India, the air pollution is above permissible levels. So I think since it became tangible, more people started caring about it. But that was just the society. The government still hasn't addressed it, even though it did declare a health emergency. They didn't offer any solutions to decrease the air pollution.
Okay, so my next question would have been if you think that your government, that the Modi government, is doing anything against these issues. I think you already kind of answered that, but what even made the news here in Germany was that there were some huge protests against the current government when the entire NSC-CAA thing happened. So when India wanted to change its citizenship laws so that it would be discriminating against Muslims. Do you think there's a hope in the opposition? Like, are there parties who are climate and environmentally friendly and who have a chance in the future to get into power?
Personally, I haven't seen any political parties on a national level talking about environmental or climate concerns on their agenda. But in Bangalore, Sanjana recently shared a document which showed a political party that prioritized the climate emergency and making sure that we have solutions to that. But that was on a local level, not on a national level. And they haven't fully established themselves even on a local level. So I think they're just starting out. Sanjana?
Yeah, so I think the rival, I think like when I looked at the manifestos of both the political parties standing for during the previous elections, like the Modi government was had 2 lines, I think, about climate change, not even, or something about safeguarding the environment, and that's it. But the other party, I mean, I don't know if there could be a viable political alternative at this moment, because I mean, lost faith in this thing. But yeah, they had more in their manifesto regarding climate change. But I mean, they've been the ruling party for before this government came into power. They've been the ruling party, and they haven't really taken any stringent action. So, I mean, I don't think on a national level we're going to see a discourse on climate change unless like we make it some sort of bigger talking agenda. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like the disasters, because even the disasters, I don't, they're not linked in the public. Like publicly, it's politicians don't really acknowledge that this is happening because of climate change or anything. So there's very little political dialogue happening about climate change, and I don't know if it's going to change. Yeah.
Okay, that's sad to hear. Maybe the two of you, well, I mean, the two of you are already involved, and I think you're a sign of hope that there are people in India, many people actually, who are concerned, and there's a generation of future leaders who do very much acknowledge the topic of the climate crisis, and maybe we will see the two of you in a position of power in the future, changing that. Well, thank you very much. I have one last question from the audience, actually. They asked what happened about they said something about 2015. There was a big project of new solar panels. Is that right? Yeah, that there's a what happened with that? Like, is India still building new renewables, or did they give up on that?
Okay, so India remains like, I mean, I think in solar energy, it remains like one of the biggest players. I think it's pretty good in, I mean, for all of our, we have a climate action plan that came into power, like that was set up in like 2008 or something. Nothing really is followed up in that except for our social national solar mission. So that's something that actually has sort of happened, translated in on ground, I think, at least the most compared to everything else. Because yeah, that's the like sort of introduction of solar cookers and other things. I think this is something that is happening much more than any of our other sustainability projects. Also, I mean, I just wanted to highlight that amongst our Paris agreements, we have 3 commitments, and 2 of them we are already on way of reaching, but we're just deforestating at a very, very high rate, and we're not going to meet our 3rd goal of sort of reducing, like increasing our carbon sequestration potential, which is sort of increasing the potential of our forests to absorb carbon. So that's, yeah, so we're falling behind on that goal. And also we've opened new coal mines. This new government has opened new coal mines. So we're probably going to fall back on another Paris Agreement goal as well. But as far as 2017, 2018, we were on the way to meet our goals, but I'm not sure now. Yeah, just wanted to put that out there also.
Okay.
Yeah, so solar energy, I think we have utilized it more than any other form of renewable sources. I think especially on a personal level, a lot of people have opted for solar energy to power a lot of things at home, but it hasn't. It's only for one particular application. It hasn't been implemented. I don't think the government has pushed it as much as they should have. But yeah, like we will be falling back on our Paris Agreement promises if we continue the way we are continuing at the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, though, for talking with us about these topics. It was very interesting to hear, and it's very great to see that there are people concerned with the topic of the climate crisis. Yes, Sanjay, yeah?
No, I just wanted to know if I could ask you a question or anyone here a question.
Yeah, sure. Feel free to ask.
Yeah, so I know that your Green Party is kind of strong in Germany. Yeah, so I mean, like, what do you guys think? Like, do you think they're effective, and do you think they can be a viable political sort of candidate for your next elections and stuff?
Well, the Green Party in Germany has existed for a few decades now already. So I think they were founded in like the 60s. So that was the first wave of climate activists in a sense. And you're right, they're now actually quite big. They were like 6, 7, 8% for the last years, and now in the within the last year they've grown immensely. Also, I think due to Fridays for Future and the climate strikes, which are fairly big in Germany, and they are actually in power in some states. These states aren't necessarily way more climate friendly than the others, but one has to say that also a lot of decisions when it comes to that are made on a country level. So I think they have a chance to get into the next government, like German government, and then we'll see. It probably also depends on whether they will be the big partner in the coalition or the small partner. So in Germany, we usually form coalitions of 2 parties, and then the stronger party is the one who decides who's to be chancellor, and the chancellor has a lot of power. So that's also a factor. I think it's probably, at least on a national level, it's probably the most climate-friendly party, at least one of the 2 most climate-friendly parties. And it's good that we have this big of a party. But within the Fridays for Future movement, there are also critical people who think that, or more critical people than I am, who think that even if they came into power, not much enough would change. But I'm not the Fridays for Future Germany boss, so we don't have an official statement on that, and we're not officially connected to them in any way. But I think many people who support us also support them. Okay, well, then thank you very much. It's cool to answer questions myself too. Thank you for that. I hope that we might talk again in a few weeks. We will do this kind of stream every week from now on. And I'd be happy to see you again in the future, both of you. Okay, so Sanja and Disha, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Okay, short switch to German. Also, das waren jetzt unsere indischen Gäste. Das fand ich persönlich sehr interessant, was die erzählt haben. Soweit ich weiß, haben wir jetzt noch eine Gästin, wieder eine internationale. Es tut mir leid, dass wir jetzt so einen leichten Englisch-Überhang haben. Aber ich glaube, das wird in Zukunft auch nicht mehr ganz so sein. Es ist halt auch unser erster Livestream und ich hoffe, ihr seid da ein bisschen nachsichtig, dass das jetzt nicht so ausgeglichen ist. Okay, so our next guest should be Sigrid from Denmark. Sigrid, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Hello, Sigrid.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Someone finally who's using a laptop, so we see the entire screen. Great. Sigrid, so cool that you made it. Sigrid wanted to give a little talk herself. Am I right or am I mistaken?
No, you can just ask questions.
Okay. I thought you were more like you want to hold of a kind of a speech and then we talk, but we can also, like with the other guests, just talk. So Sigrid, just tell us a little bit about you. Like, how old are you? Where in Denmark are you from?
Okay, my name is Cyril, and I'm 16 years old. I'm from a small city. I don't know how many there lives. It's called Viborg. It's in North Jutland. Yeah, and we have strikes maybe every second month, and where we were holding them at the city hall, where we have a march, and then we're standing in front of the city hall where we're protesting. I think in Denmark, national, we're around 10,000 people striking when we strike. In 13 to 16 cities. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name not the right way. Could you repeat that, please?
Cyril.
Cyril? Okay, I'll try. Cyril. Okay, great. Well, okay, so let's start with a question that I think I asked most of our guests. I mean, Denmark does have a very long coast, right? Even longer than the German, way longer actually. Do you know, have there been any floodings? Are there any predictions of floodings coming, or of floods coming, or is there, like, how will you be, or are you already affected by the climate crisis?
I would say that usually people speak about the climate crisis like something to be faced in the future, but the fact is that a lot of countries actually already affects them, feel the effects of them. In Denmark, we have a lot of floods. As you said, they ruin a lot of houses, and yeah, it's just really annoying. We have lots of them in the autumn and the winter. So yeah, and we also start to have really dry summers and heat waves. But yeah, floods is probably what we feel the most.
Okay, so what's interesting about Denmark, I think, well, at least what is different to the other guests we've talked to, is that you don't have a conservative government, but you've actually got a government which I think is called the Red Bloc, right? So it's Social Democrats and left wing. Do you think they are treating the climate crisis more urgently than our governments are, or is it basically the same?
I mean, like, maybe they treat it a bit more serious, but like the opinion in Fridays for Future is that it isn't serious enough. But like on December the 6th, 2019, we actually had the world's first climate law, which said that we should be carbon neutral in 2050. But then, even though the climate law says that, we still have oil drills, which right now there's a discussion if there's going to be permission to drill for oil in the North Ocean. Yeah, and these oil drills will last till 2055, so that's 5 years after we committed ourselves to be carbon neutral. So yeah, maybe they don't take it as serious as we could hope for.
And when I think of Danish people, I've met a few when traveling. They were always very friendly, and I think they were politically often close to where I stand. So would you say that the Danish society maybe is awake when it comes to the climate crisis, or haven't they really woken up when it comes to it?
I mean, like, we've like, I don't know if we're more aware of it than other countries, but like, sure, Fridays for Future has been doing lots of like strikes and things, which definitely has had an influence on the politicians and also on the Danish society in general. So yeah, we do see that what we're doing with the strikes, it helps, and it has changed like some people's mind about the climate change.
Okay, so then let's talk a bit more about the movement. Is it like, how did you get into striking for climate? That's always interesting, I think. How did you join?
Okay, I think I've kind of always been climate activist, but like, or at least I've always been aware, and I've always like known about the importance of the climate crisis. But that's probably most because of my family. They're very climate conscious. But I think the moment I really started to care much more about being a climate activist, that was when I heard of Fridays for Future, like the movement, because It was like all of a sudden there was this larger community that I could be a part of, and all of a sudden there was this movement where I felt like that I, together with other young people, really had the chance to achieve something and make a difference.
And do you, because I already wanted to ask the Indian guests and I forgot, which is sad because when I was there in India, they strike before school because the punishment in school is so harsh. Do you skip school to strike in Denmark or university?
No, I don't think there's not like, okay, we get absence when it's in the school time, but we don't get other sorts of punishment.
Okay, so you do strike during lessons?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we do that as well in Germany. Yeah. But it's always a factor, of course, because some might not be able to skip, and we often have this discussion, should we strike during lessons or after? Okay, it's cool to hear that you still strike during lessons. I mean, that's the original thought of Fridays for Future, right?
Yeah, school strikes. But
yeah, exactly. That's
for it. Are you punished for it?
It depends. So, and where I'm from, or where we're from in Munich, the state government gave the decision to the schools. So it very much varies from school to school. So we have schools which are cool with it, and they say, okay, you have to come back to school afterwards and do the lessons then, which you're missing. But we also have schools which are very hard on it, and they say, well, if you want to do this, you have to live with the consequences, which are that you'll be eventually kicked out even. So it is a factor that I think we are missing out on a few people who just simply can't if they don't want to risk their entire like academic life. So yeah, it very much varies from school to school. Okay, what else? Is there anything that you would like to tell us? Like, is there anything you would like to get out into the world?
Yeah, we can always talk about like how it is with the online climate strikes.
Yeah, how do you do that in Denmark? Are people doing this? Are they participating? Do you do like in England with the signs? Do you post pictures of that, or do you do streams as well, or how do you cope with the situation?
Yeah, we have, like most countries, canceled all physical climate strikes. Because of the coronavirus. So all strikes and meetings and activities which involves people meeting in person, they have been canceled. But we still do climate activism. So we've kind of moved it online. So we post pictures every Friday, and pictures with our signs. And then we're organizing a large national online climate strike on April 24th, where we will. Last time we focused on the fossil fuel industry, and this time we will focus on the climate action plan, because as I mentioned earlier, we had the world's first climate law, and it's this law which we need to put into an action plan now. So we see that as a really, really important plan, because it's this plan which will ensure that we get started on the transition away from carbon-based technologies, and it's also this plan which is gonna keep the politicians focused on working towards a green Denmark. So yeah, we're focusing on that action plan.
Okay, cool. I just remembered one thing, that technically Greenland is still part of Denmark, right? But I think they're self-governed or something like that. Like, is that a part of the climate discussion in Denmark as well, that the ice in Greenland is melting?
I think they're just like more like the whole discussion about the ice is melting is kind of like a worldwide discussion. So I don't think they're like an extra part of the discussion in Denmark. It's just like in the rest of the world, the whole discussion about the ice is melting.
Yeah,
You talk about everywhere.
Okay, I just remembered this because Trump wanted to buy Greenland, right? Which was a bit funny and sad at the same time. Okay, I mean, because it's actually interesting that the ice is melting there, which is technically still a part of Denmark, and then Denmark will be very much affected by the rising sea levels, right? So, well, thank you very much. Do you have any last words, or would you like to visit us again in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I will. But yeah, I just think that as kind of a last word, we've been talking a lot about in Fridays for Future Denmark that it's important not to put the climate crisis and the corona crisis into competition, because yeah, we see like when people are doing climate activism, some people tend to get mad because we're taking the focus away from the corona crisis. So we've been focusing a lot about that in Denmark, not to make it into a competition. It doesn't mean we don't do climate activism, but we just make sure that that it isn't like made as a competition against the corona crisis.
Yeah, I think that's important too. We have this kind of discussions as well, and I think at the end, it's for both. It comes down to listen to the science, right? Listen to the scientists, and don't be stupid, and try to save your species. Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, the competition is obviously senseless. Thank you very much. It was great to talk to you as well, and I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so to our international guests. I must say that was our last international guest. I think it was our last guest in total. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm giving back to Hannah.
Okay, wieder auf Deutsch jetzt. Genau. Bevor wir mit dem Stream aufhören, haben wir 2 Fragen gestellt bekommen. Die würde ich kurz beantworten. Die erste ist, muss man Vegetarierin sein, um bei Fridays for Future mitzumachen oder mitzustreiken? Nein, das muss man natürlich nicht. Also kein Mensch ist perfekt. Es ist ja nicht so, dass wir irgendwie eine Eintrittskarte verlangen, so du musst jetzt das und das machen und dann kannst du auf unseren Streik gehen, sondern ist natürlich cool, wenn ihr das macht, was ihr könnt, aber wenn es euch total schwer fällt oder ihr das einfach nicht machen wollt, aber stattdessen andere Sachen macht und regelmäßig zu den Demos geht, ist es einfach auch schon total cool. Genau. Und die zweite Frage ist, gibt es nächste Woche wieder einen Streamstreik? Genau. Wird es geben. Wir wissen noch nicht genau um welche Uhrzeit, aber schaltet da auf jeden Fall wieder ein. Und Fridays for Future Deutschland macht wahrscheinlich auch wieder nächste Woche so coole Webinare auf YouTube. Könnt ihr auch mal vorbeischauen, wo ihr euch dann weiterbilden könnt, falls euch langweilig sein sollte. Genau. Und dann nicht vergessen, wir haben ja auch noch den Netzstreik fürs Klima. Das geht einfach so, dass ihr ein Schild malt, wo ihr einfach irgendeinen Demospruch draufschreibt oder generell ein Demoschild malt und euch dann zusammen mit dem oder einfach nur das Schild fotografiert und dann auf Social Media unter dem Hashtag Netzstreik fürs Klima oder Climate Strike Online genau hochladet. Und das wäre es jetzt eigentlich für diese Woche. Und bleibt zu Hause. Und genau, sehr cool.
Abonniert unseren Kanal. Abonniert unseren Kanal.